Welcome to the CCEE Distance Learning Consortium. My name is Jennifer Gately, and I will be your facilitator for this session from San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. Today, we will be exploring Hot Topic Session 4, Fostering Student and Family Well-Being in Distance Learning. The session topics that we will be exploring today continue the why, what, and how of distance learning and family engagement. In this session, we will be exploring well-being in distance learning. We will take that a step further and look at the whole child model of distance learning, including the support for social and emotional well-being. And finally, we will address social and emotional needs for all students and families in distance learning together. But first, let's begin with a quote. If a child can do advanced math, speak 3 languages, or receive top grades, but can't manage their emotions, practice conflict resolution, or handle stress, none of that other stuff is really going to matter. What does this tell us? This tells us that the goal of distance learning is not only to support the academic growth of students, but to do so in a way that fosters students and families' well-being in the process. That it is the whole child and the whole family that is truly the focus of distance learning. So let's explore that idea a little further. Social and emotional well-being in distance learning. What does that really mean? And how do I do that? Knowledge of social emotional learning is increasing in our schools, and therefore is a strong conversation as we transition away from our schools as well. As we look at the idea of social emotional learning, we anchor to some of our partners in the field that help define social emotional learning and what that means for students, regardless of where the learning in the social emotional skills is taking place. So as we look at the graphic to the right from our CASEL organization, we see there are 5 key components to social emotional learning. As we work together with our families to transition students into distance learning, we focus on 5 key ideas. The first being students' ability to be self-aware, to recognize their emotions and their values, as well as the strengths and challenges that they have, to recognize those strengths in distance learning, and to put those into practice so that they are successful in the experience. Number 2, responsible decision-making. Students' ability to make ethical, constructive choices about personal and social behavior. This often impacts their engagement in distance learning, not only with themselves, but with their family and their classmates as well. Third, relationship skills. Forming positive relationships, working in teams, developing effectively through and with conflict. This, again, is evident in distance learning as our teachers strive to find ways to engage students in distance learning, to develop the relationships that they would have in the classroom as well as away from the classroom. And knowing that our families are an important part of the relationships that students are now fostering at home. Fourth, that we look at students' social awareness, their ability to show understanding and empathies for others. This often impacts the idea of equity as well, recognizing that not all students have the same environment, the same skills, or the same strengths in distance learning as they might have had in the classroom. And how can they be socially aware of themselves and how they engage in distance learning with their families, by themselves or with their classmates, but to be aware of their peers and their other siblings and family members as well. And finally, the idea of self-management, managing emotions and behaviors to support students so that they can achieve their goals in distance learning. So let's continue to take this a little further as we explore the essential question of how do we support students and families' well-being in distance learning? What does that look like? First, one way that we can explore social emotional learning is to create that solid foundation for social emotional learning in the home. Oftentimes, this comes from 2 key actions that our teachers can engage together with our families. First of all, fostering a sense of belonging and connection, engaging in moments together with the family and the students that are both formal, but also informal as well. And number 2, emphasizing respect, safety, and a sense of community above all else, modeling clear expectations for online interactions, not only for the students that are engaging in distance learning, but for the families that are often in the distance learning environment around the students during their class time, making sure that above all else, that there is a foundation for students to be protected during their classroom time, regardless if they are in the classroom or in the home. Number 2, attending to the well-being among adults. Now, this sounds a little counterintuitive as we look at social emotional learning, and we know that most often when we talk about learning, we're talking about the students that are engaging in the learning. But now we're including the adults that are in the learning environment with the students. And we realize that the charge of distance learning is just as much of a challenge for those adults and those family members as it is for the students that they are supporting. So as we engage in attending to the well-being for these adults, we often see 3 key ideas, often like a mantra of distance learning, that is coming to the forefront of those family engagement conversations. The first being that we truly are stronger together, that we must work together as a family, as a learning pod, as a classroom community to develop and maintain new relationships and new connections so that the learning experience does not become isolated in the home, but truly becomes a journey that we engage in together, and that no one has to develop that journey on their own, that we are here together. Number 2, that it does take a village to implement distance learning in the home. Working together to monitor students and to support their well-beings is a partnership between our teachers and our families, that they're working together in unison, in collaboration to support the needs, not just of the children in distance learning, but the families that are supporting those children as well. But that together we can accomplish that task as one family, as one village, as one community. And third, that we take the opportunity to attend to our own adult self-care. Again, I know this often seems counterintuitive, and we hear the ideas of, I don't have time, I don't have a desire, or I don't have a need. But we do know that putting on our own oxygen mask first, filling up our own bucket first, allows us, our families, our teachers, our parents, everyone who's trying to support our students, to do so in a way that is more beneficial to both the students and the families, because it's coming from a place of self-care and truly realizing that self-care is not selfish, that allowing yourself to take care of yourself at the same time as you're taking care of others truly is the benefit to all. And third, that we recognize opportunities to participate in social emotional learning, and that oftentimes as families that we model and engage in those opportunities together with our students. As we look at the distance learning environment that's being provided for our teachers, oftentimes these social emotional learning moments do seem like activities. They are less structured than the instructional lesson that often follows it. But recognizing that social emotional learning has just as much value as academic learning and often supports students in engaging with more impact and intention in academic learning brings benefit to the social emotional learning moment. But recognizing that moment in the virtual environment is often the challenge. So as a family, what you might be looking for are those inclusive, welcoming activities, and recognizing that that might be a simple check-in question, it might be a mindfulness moment, it might be a beginning class activity or a circle time, but that is your opportunity for you to make sure as a family that your child is included in that learning time. And if you are able to, as a family, to engage in that learning moment together with your child. We especially see that in our young learners in preschool and in early elementary, that's an opportunity for not just the child to engage, but the family to come in and engage together. You might also see social emotional engagement activities where there's times throughout the lessons, the academic time, for students to unmute their audio, to unmute their video, to engage in breakout room discussions, or to join an office hour session with their instructor. This is a time where students do have to step forward, to be vulnerable, to be present, to be engaged with other students, with their teachers, and sometimes together with their families. And in doing so, that gives the teacher and the student an opportunity to check in with one another to make sure that there is a sense of well-being and wellness that allows the student to thrive in distance learning. And finally, you might see during the distance learning day an opportunity for that optimistic closing activity. Oftentimes, this might be a closing circle, a community discussion, or just a simple sharing time. But it allows the student and the family to bring that learning moment together with the teacher to a close and to prepare them to transition and to continue their learning day in that asynchronous time, either independently or together with their family, and to be prepared and confident in doing so. So I encourage you, as you explore your students' distance learning day, to keep an eye out, to look for opportunities, not only to make sure that your child is engaged in their social emotional learning, but to look for those moments as a family where you might engage together with them. So in summary, students and families developing a sense of belonging in the virtual school community is key to the physical, psychological, and emotional well-being of all during distance learning. It is not in addition to distance learning. It is an essential component of distance learning, not only for your student, but for your family as well. We invite you to continue the conversation about family well-being and distance learning as you look at some of the activities listed below to foster emotional and social well-being, mentally and spiritually well-being, physical and practicality. We encourage you to engage in the activities that are most appropriate and most comfortable for you and your family to make sure that everyone is well, happy, and healthy during distance learning. This brings session 4 to a close as we finish the conversation on student and family well-being in distance learning. But we invite you to join us as we continue on this professional learning journey into session 5, where we will be looking at how to prioritize core instructional values in distance learning. Thank you.